Today we're going to look at the ghost photos that friends of Mr. Newton's neighborhood submitted, and we'll show you how to make some cool ghost photos yourself, as well as debunk some famous supposedly real ghost photos. Welcome to Mr. Newton's neighborhood. I'm your host, Scott Newton. We've got a fun episode today. It's all about ghost photography. Now, as someone who went to college for photography and worked as a professional, as well as someone who loves a good scary movie, I'm really excited about today's show. But I've got to be honest. The first time I saw a real ghost photo, I was like, what? That is not a ghost. There's a few kinds of ghost photos you'll generally see. There's the intentional fakes, of course, which are extremely obvious to photographers and to many people who are not photographers. There's the mysterious figures that appear inexplicably in the background. And the ghost photos that untrained photographers can't explain, which are usually things like orbs, or mysterious streams of light, or creepy mist. Most of the supposedly real ghost photos generally annoy people who've studied photography. But we photographers shouldn't get too high and mighty about this. We need to remember, most people are not trained in the art of photo taking. Just as I can't pretend to know what a nurse knows without having gone to school and worked as a nurse. If I did that, I'd end up looking ignorant like the ladies on The View that didn't know nurses use stethoscopes and have specialized medical training. But I digress. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that ghosts don't exist, but I am going to boldly state that I doubt there has ever been a photo of a real ghost. I have never seen a ghost photo that seems legit that can't be easily explained by natural causes. But before you get angry and start typing about real ghost photos in the comments, please watch the entire video. I will be happy to have an open-minded discussion with you. Now we're going to take a look at some famous ghost photos, as well as the photos that are submitted by you, the friends of Mr. Newton's neighborhood. And we'll look at some common types of ghost photographs and show you how to make your own spooky pics. A great photo that illustrates our first topic really well is this groovy and stylistic photo submitted by Eric. Thank you, Eric. Now to us modern viewers, we might look at this and say this is a really cool photo, but it's obviously Photoshop or double exposure, right? However, this was not obvious to people when photography was in its infancy, which brings us to our first famous debunks. These were photographed in the late 1800s by William H. Mulmer, the most famous of which was of Abraham Lincoln's wife with the ghost of Honest Abe himself. Mulmer did a whole series of photos like this. He had people sit for spiritual photography sessions with the help of his wife, who was known as a clairvoyant. They took photos of people with what appeared to be their deceased loved ones. To learn more about clairvoyant psychic mediums, watch our episode, How to Be a Psychic and Spot Fakes. Anyway, during this time, photographers used photographic plates, which they could reuse multiple times for other photos. If they weren't cleaned off properly, you would get remnants of the photo that was previously on the plate. Now, when Mulmer first did this unintentionally with a self-portrait, he showed it to his friends, and they interpreted it to be the spirit of his cousin. Rather than explain what happened, he was like, "Heck yeah, I got me a business, yo!" Luckily for him, but not for those he conned, he already had photos from past clients. Enough photos that he could find a picture of someone that resembled the recently deceased, or at least close enough so the person sitting for the spirit photograph would think that it was their dead loved one. After a short time, some good people of Boston, where he lived, started to recognize the very alive ghosts in the photographs. So he moved to New York to continue his scam, where he made a very pretty penny, but was eventually found out and prosecuted, partially due to photographers being able to expose his trickery and call him on his bull. So how can you do this? Well, there's a couple ways. You'll want the ghost model to be up against a black backdrop for best results. For method 1, using film, the black areas are clear on the negative, so you simply put the negative of your fake ghost photo over the photo you wish it to appear in. Ghosts love tacos. Also with film, you could do a double exposure, just by going back a frame and taking a second photo on top of the previously taken photo. As for method 2, that's 4, 2. Digital manipulation using Photoshop or similar programs. You can do this in a few ways. One is by cutting out the figure you want to be the ghost, then placing it where you want over the image in the top layer. If you shoot it on black, it's a lot easier because you can have the ghost layer and you can put it on screen or lighten, and play with the opacity until you get the desired effect. Just keep experimenting until you get the look you like. And that brings us to what is arguably the most famous ghost photo, the Brown Lady. This was taken in 1936, and the true story behind it is actually quite creepy. The ghost is supposedly Lady Townsend of Raynham. I don't know how to say it. Raynham Hall? We'll just say Raynham. It was said that after her husband found out she did something that generally isn't appreciated by other people in relationships, he locked her up in rooms in their home until her death at the ripe old age of 40. And many people claim to see her in that house over the years. But we don't have time to go into this story so much, so there's links in the description, you can read all about it. The Brown Lady photo is really fun because there's a few ways it could have been done. But the best and easiest explanation is a double exposure. That is the conclusion that photo analysts and experts have come to. I myself, looking at it, it really does look like a double exposure. In fact, I made one just for fun. Check it out. Moving right along. Now, what if you don't have the technical savvy for Photoshop or any of these methods? Don't worry, you can get just as creepy of photos, and all you need is an automatic camera or your phone. Here's a great example sent in by Sherry. You just have your ghost model pose in the photo. It works best if it's a little out of focus in a dark, creepy location. She said the model rolled his eyes back, which made it even spookier. Then she just made it black and white. You can do this with filters that are probably already in your phone. And if the model moves a little, you get an even creepier effect with a little bit of a blur. Like this supposedly real photo. This one's super creepy and it looks really old, but I think it was actually taken in the 90s. But that old black and white look gives it an even eerier look. But it's just a slow exposure with the subject moving. And in the good old days, long exposures were the norm, especially in dim lighting. I did something similar. For this photo, I just put my phone on a tripod in a dimly lit room so the aperture would have to be open longer, and moved really fast. But I did some in a more old school way with my good camera so I could control the exposure a little better. With this, I just moved somewhat fast with a slow shutter speed, and please pretend you did not see the clutter in my house. I promise my house is clean every other week. And with this ghost in the doorway, I did the same thing, but I was under a sheet. Yeah, I'm getting old school classic up in his house. And then this one I did the same way while I was in high school. I had my friend Megan hold still while I moved, shooting with a long exposure. And speaking of Megan, this photo was sent to us by Megan, starring Michael as the ghost. Now, when I first saw it, I didn't actually notice the creepy, hidden, blurry face. Freaking cool. Do you see the face? She said this was done by putting a sheer scarf over his head, and as she said, my camera phone sucks, so it was a little bit blurred. Blurry is often psychologically even scarier. And speaking of hidden faces, this is probably a good time to mention pareidolia. Pareidolia is where we see a pattern where there is no pattern. With pareidolia, we have a very strong tendency to see faces that are not there. This is something that is innate in all of us. This is common in just about everyone, i.e. we see things like the man on the moon, the face on Mars, or Mother Mary in Burnt Toast, etc. This is also how we see images in clouds. We know the images aren't there, but we have fun looking at them and trying to find them. For the next photo, we have a mysterious smoky photo that Crystal sent in. I love this because its origins and how it was done is unknown. She said, "This photo was taken on my phone. I don't know who took it, but I know it was at my child's birthday party. Smiley face. There is no Photoshop on it or anything. It creeps me out, but I never erased it for some reason. I was probably just chasing the kids around in candle smoke." Now notice, even though it's not explainable in any immediate way, the automatic conclusion isn't ghosts. She realizes there's possible natural origins, not just supernatural ones. Before we get to the next topic, and probably the coolest one, Crystal's photo and her statement bring up some very important points. Before you insist something is out of this world, first make sure it is not of this world. You want to look for natural causes. If you find yourself saying, "There's no other possible explanation," think about that. Is there really no other possible explanation? I'll bet you could come up with at least one. If there are other more plausible natural explanations, that's more likely what it is. While searching for an explanation of a mysterious photo, compare your photo to similar photos with explanations. If a similar photo is shown to have a natural explanation, that's probably what it really is. It's not as exciting as ghosts, but sometimes the truth isn't what we want it to be. Now, if you legitimately can't explain the photo, it doesn't mean you should default to, "I can't explain that, therefore it's ghosts," or aliens, or whatever spooky thing you want it to be. It's okay to say, "I don't know." Just because you can't explain something doesn't mean it's automatically a ghost. It just means you can't explain it. Now we're going to look at one of my favorite photos sent in by Amity. This one is awesome because this is what many modern real ghost photos look like. What's even better is, like Crystal, she wasn't sure how this was done. Now when we see a photo like this one, which I took, even though it's frightening, we automatically know it's not real. Yet when we see something like Amity and Crystal's photos, we think it could be real. Why is that? Because we all know Photoshop exists and it's easy to dismiss as digital manipulation even if we don't have the technical know-how. If we take the photo I took back in time and show this to someone that has no idea what a computer is, it would scare the pants off of them. They wouldn't be able to explain it. Amity's photo is something most people can't explain, and that's why people often think photos like this are real. And that's completely understandable since most people do not go to college for photography. So let's see how photos like this can be done. Amity's in particular could be a couple of different things. It could be breath reflecting off the flash on a cold night. It could be a camera strap. It could be cigarette smoke or a little cloud of dust or dirt kicked up in the air by just walking around. With photos like these, the most common occurrence is what ghost hunters and ghost photo enthusiasts call orbs. Orbs are round and usually luminous circles or blobs of light. Here's a cool common looking orb photo. It's from shadowlands.net. This site has an interesting idea of what orbs might be. The writer of the site does not fully understand how these could be created naturally, or if they do, they're in denial. They say that orbs should be consistent in photos taken consecutively, so that's proof it's a ghost. Wrong! It's just proof that whatever they're photographing isn't appearing consecutively. What an orb generally is just close-up dust or bugs like gnats. Even light rain and snow can do this. With film, it can even be water spots on the film itself. The objects creating the orbs have to be very close to the lens. A slight breath or movement would be enough to move a speck of dust an inch away from the lens in under a second. So there's a reason they may not appear in consecutive photos. Also, you'll be hard-pressed to find photos of orbs that are taken without a flash. This is because the flash is often an important part of most orb photos. Basically, this is what happens when you're blasting a scene with a flash to illuminate it. When a particle of dust or a gnat or raindrops are close to the lens, it appears as what ghost hunters call an orb. And this is what photographers call annoying. The dust, bug, droplet of water, or whatever it is close enough to the lens to be out of the depth of focus, and the light reflects off the object back into the lens. Now, depending on the quality of your camera, you can even get orbs with different colors and different colored edges. Cheaper cameras will get things like a blue outline, for example. I decided to take some orb photos intentionally just for this episode. It only took a couple of minutes to get these. On the ones with the mannequin, this guy, I sprinkled pepper, salt, or baking soda since I couldn't find any dust to blow into the air. The ones of my daughter are occasional light raindrops, dirt she kicked around, and dirt I threw and blew into the air. Here's a really cool one with a horse. Notice the horse is running around in, wait for it, dirt. What a shock. Now I have to admit this horse photo is really cool. And it was from yourghoststories.com. Didn't find any signs of ghosts there either. Ever notice the orbs appear in spooky haunted places? For some reason, you'll get way more orbs in places that have dirt on the ground, like old cemeteries, or in dusty old buildings. I wonder why that is. Could it be the excess dirt or dust? Yep, and since orbs are easier to capture at night and in creepy old places, it adds to the psychology. Once in a great while, folks will even stretch their imagination to see faces in the orbs, using their amazing human brain powers of pareidolia. And there's other kinds of orbs too, like black orbs. In this photo, I just didn't agitate the film enough, so I got water spots. But there's other ways to get cooler looking black orbs than water spots. In fact, I could do an entire episode just on orbs, but I think I've already taken too long on this subject. So if you want more details on how orbs are made and a step-by-step on how to do them yourself, see the link in the description by ASSAP, Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. Say that 3 times fast. Alright, now let's quickly look at a couple of other photos. Check this creepy one out. It may not seem as creepy at first. Even an untrained eye might see that it's just lens flares created by the sun. But did you see the creepy figure in the background? I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this one is fake because I took it. And that brings us to Unexplained Figures. This famous real photo is a doozy. See the guy behind this cute little old lady? He wasn't there when the photo was taken! Right. This kind of stuff happens all the time. When getting an unexplained figure, just ask yourself, is it more likely that you didn't notice a person in the background when you took the photo? Or is it more likely that it's a ghost? Our brains don't work the way we think they do, folks. We only see things selectively that we think are important at the moment we're taking the scene in. Our brains aren't video recorders. That's not how they work. One example is the pranks you've probably seen where an actor is asking a person being pranked for directions, and another actor passes between them with a large object, giving the person doing the prank a chance to switch places with the other actor. And the victims of this prank rarely notice that they're suddenly talking to a different person. Also, there was another famous test where people watched a video and were asked to count how many times people in a specific color of shirt passed a ball around. Meanwhile, a gorilla walks through the scene, stops, beats his chest, and hardly anyone tested saw the gorilla. I showed this video to a few friends and family, all of whom did not see the gorilla. I'll put the link in the description so you can try it with your friends and family. Even eyewitness testimony has been found to be extremely unreliable. It can change everything from what the suspect was wearing, from the time of day, to even changing a person's race. We think our brains are dependable logical memory machines, but they are far from it. Many studies over the years have shown this. So I ask again, what's more likely? Someone you didn't notice, or Casper photobombing you? I could go on debunking ghost photos all day long, but we don't have time for that and you wouldn't want to sit through a 5-hour video. So I'm just going to show you a few famous photos without talking about them, and your job is to search the internet for the true explanations of these creepy gems. Or for extra credit, you can even try to figure it out yourself before you find the debunked answer.
Gotcha.
After finding a sound earthly explanation for a ghost photo, do you still believe you have a ghost photo? You're probably guilty of confirmation bias, which is where you look for things to confirm your previously held beliefs that it is a ghost, and you ignore the natural explanations that say otherwise. Like I said, we're not as logical creatures as we think we are. After giving an honest try and you still can't think of a natural explanation, don't jump to ghosts, because it could just as easily be a fairy or a unicorn fart. Prove to me it's not a unicorn fart. Oh yeah, you can't. You can't prove a negative. Remember, kids, absence of evidence is not evidence. Now, all of this doesn't mean I'm not open to the possibility of ghosts existing. It just means I haven't seen photographic evidence of them. Show me the money! Show me the money! If we ever do get actual evidence that ghosts exist, I think that would be freaking awesome. In fact, on the next episode, I'm interviewing a ghost hunter. So we'll see if she has some more input on the subject. Maybe she can put me in my place. Alright, really quickly before we go, I have to show you this hilarious photo I found from ufovideo.net. It's not snowing! I think everyone watching could agree that somebody's not being honest. Did you notice the snow on the ground? Here's a few photos I took of the lovely Amity in the snow. The snow in my pics, which I photographed intentionally, look a lot more like orbs than the snow in this dude's photo. The biggest difference between the two is that mine has an honest person in it. Thanks for watching Mr. Newton's Neighborhood. Be a neighbor and subscribe.
Excuse me, sir. Whoa, yes, hello there. Strange-mouthed fellow. How can I help you?
Could you tell me how to get to the Castle of Eternia?
Ah, of course. Yes, well, you just go past Castle Grayskull. Excuse me, dudes. Sorry, coming through. It's quite alright. Sorry about that, dudes. Anyway, as I was saying, you just go past Castle Grayskull and over the hill and... Skeletor!
You fool, He-Man! Have some directions of my foot up your butt!